I remember being on the day like, whoa, like this is real. You don't even have to touch it.
I think he truly feels that he can take the power and make his vision come to life.
Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1 did what previous adaptations had been unable to, fully immersing audiences in the world of Frank Herbert's influential sci-fi novels on a grand scale. Villeneuve's take on Dune makes very few compromises in bringing Paul Atreides' complex destiny to the big screen, including and especially the incredible blend of practical and Oscar-winning visual effects. Considering the significantly expanded scope of Dune Part 2's plot, those crafted elements of the production were more crucial than ever to help viewers lock into this world of sandworms, shields, and stillsuits. And not just viewers, but the cast as well.
Shai Hulud decides today if you become Fremen, or if you die.
What physical, tangible element of the production was most useful in bringing your characters and the story to life?
For me, anytime we shot in the desert, and the sequence where Paul rides a sandworm, it was having a rig that was as violent and within reason, uncontrollable as it would have felt to be on a sandworm. It felt properly terrifying at times. We had an entire worm unit, dedicated to that sequence in the film. Tanya LaPointe, Denis' partner and the executive producer on the movie that she directed. There's its own vibe on the worm unit. It was like a separate movie going on, where the massive resources of this film in that unit were dedicated to getting what's ultimately a 3-minute or 4-minute sequence in the movie, shot over the course of 4 months with a shot list that covered a wall this size that they sort of, dutifully chipped away at over the course of 3 months. So just extraordinary. Couldn't have been done on green screen.
Austin, how about you?
I guess it's probably the 3 hours that I'd spent in hair and makeup, because it shifts you over and you don't see yourself in the mirror anymore, and you just feel like a different person.
Costume and hair and makeup, like having all those things combined. I mean, usually it is for me as well, those elements, but I think getting into everything and then walking onto these sets, we were transported.
I'm constantly covered in veils. It makes it really heavy and I hide behind it. I guess that does a lot. Jokes aside, I've been joking about the 100 veils that Denis wanted to put me behind. My ego was just squashed. And then I just ripped them away, basically. But I think the power of after the turn, the tattoos, knowing I was covered, made me feel very safe, and it also made me feel like I was watching everything behind drapes, and it's kind of how I identify her.
In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets.
Of course, for a story being told on a universal scale, stunts, costume, and makeup can only get you so far. To make Arrakis and the Harkonnen homeworld Giedi Prime feel as real as possible, Villeneuve prioritized shooting on real sets and locations in Dune Part 2.
Everything you see in your immediate surroundings with this film is practical, because it allows you to just be completely immersed, and you don't have to depend on your imagination. Everything is just there for you. It just allows you to actually just be in that moment and get lost in those scenes.
We get to spend a little bit of time on Giedi Prime in Dune Part 2. Did getting to spend some time on the Harkonnen homeworld illuminate anything for you about that family?
It did when I watched it on film. Not so much when we were filming it. It was really the actors. It was really Austin. It was really Stellan that allowed me to get sucked into the Harkonnens. But when I watched it on film was when I really felt like I really kind of understood that the Harkonnens are just so ominous and they're just so dark.
You use everything, and when you have physical effects like you really have the sets, it does something to you. And you feel the fascistic architecture that would have pleased Hitler or Mussolini that I have in my buildings. It gives you an enormous feeling. Show me who you are.
There's like this sweeping shot us at like 5 in the morning, and it's the big Paul and Chani kiss, and it's like sweeping the thing, and that is just practical. There's nothing. I remember being on the day like, whoa, like this is real. You don't even have to touch it.
Reload!
I like being out in the middle of the desert. I like it when it's hard. I like it when people are like wanting to complain and can't because nobody will listen. I really liked being in Abu Dhabi. You know, we were, 2.5 hours south of Abu Dhabi, surrounded by 100 kilometers of nothing but desert. So even when you weren't working, you just had nothing to work with but desert. So you'd climb and you'd probably hike 5 miles a day. It's hard, but I like those things. I like it when I feel like you earn your stay, you know, and I want to make sure to, you know, it just feels more gratifying at the end of the day. But there's something about Denis movies, whether it be Sicario or Dune 2, and hopefully more in the future, where he loves encasing people in the reality of what is real as possible.
Dune Part 1 had a heavy focus on establishing the political intrigue baked into life under Imperium rule, with a specific focus on the rivalry between houses Atreides and Harkonnen. Part 2 sees that rivalry explode into a war that will not be decided by the barons or dukes of old, but by a next generation of leaders who find themselves conflicted about which of the old ways to carry forward into the future. While House Atreides is fighting for honor, the villainous Baron Harkonnen is seeking to maintain his family's power and preference in the eyes of the Emperor.
Well, his role is basically, I mean, he's realizing he's getting old, and he has to find a successor. He finds feyd-rautha. Of course, that's the ideal heir he can find. I don't think he's interested in sort of the generational thing, or he does that, and he's very pragmatic. It's a matter of making the best moves for his genes, sort of.
Feyd feels in his own way, in his own mind, as the chosen one of his group, you know, and feels more intelligent and more vicious and brutal than almost anyone else that he's surrounded by. So I think he truly feels that he can take the power and make his vision come to life. And then we've got Paul.
Yeah, who's, I think, perhaps more torn between two fates or two desires. One to assimilate amongst the Fremen and live as a normal cooperative existence with the Fremen as possible as an outsider, ultimately, and someone coming from personal tragedy, and a sort of greater calling that puts him on a path of, yes, being a leader in many ways, but at the same time seeing through the so-called benefits that come with that, just to the other side of treachery and death and destruction, and sort of the rare conflicted figure that comes into power, extremely wary of it and reluctant at first. And necessity calls at some point, so I think he's sort of pulled between these two polarities.
And you still have to maintain that core of who Paul is at the end of the day.
Yeah, which is tough, and should we be so lucky as to make a third one is even more complicated.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
I think something that Denis really carved out is the divide between the younger generation, the older generation of Chani and Stilgar, and how they view this prophecy and Paul and all of it. And so it for me, it was wonderful because it allowed also for their love story to be even more challenging and conflicting and difficult for her to accept, because she doesn't believe in him anyway. Not only does she not believe, she thinks it's harmful, right? So and dangerous. So she's already coming into this against him, and something in her heart, somehow love starts forming. And I think that becomes a very challenging thing for her to accept.
Paul's journey from boy to Messiah may have passed the point of no return after the Harkonnen slaughter of House Atreides, but it started long before that. The mysterious and powerful sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit has spent centuries influencing the bloodlines of the great houses to bring about their fated icon, the Kwisatz Haderach, a being believed to be capable of transcending time and space to bring about a better future, or at least the future the Bene Gesserit prefer.
A path has been laid. Let's hope he doesn't squander it.
It's life, isn't it? It's kind of what we constantly battle with, whether it's also genetic DNA of our history, right? If you read the book, it's the drops of our inheritance through the sisterhood that has been planted all over, physically. Not just in our heritage, in us, but actually physically. There are things that have been there for hundreds of years, which trickles down into the knowledge of the trained eye of a Bene Gesserit. And I love all of that. You know, taking all of that into consideration builds so much more power to the cathedral of her identity.
The mysterious Bene Gesserit sisterhood wields influence at the highest levels of the Imperium, and that includes over the Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan, who has been brought up in their ways. Irulan uses that powerful perspective to stay one step ahead of the conflict at the heart of Dune Part 2, even while beginning the story on the back foot.
I think Princess Irulan is almost straight away trying to play catch up of information that maybe she's been kept from to protect her, or just to protect that secret. But she's definitely smart enough, wise enough, cunning enough to be on the tails of what's going on, and she calls it. And I think her reality is in some ways she's kind of preparing herself for the thing that she's supposed to be preparing herself for, but furthermore, more so than her father is probably ready for her to. And I think she's kind of already making herself the adult in the room without people really being aware that she's doing so. So I think she's probably lending herself to the older generation a lot sooner than maybe everybody around her is prepared for, which you kind of see in the end. You see that she's clocked everything all along, and she's been preparing herself whilst also being very mindful that she's been played.
Dune Part 2 will be in theaters March 1st. We have plenty more IGN Fan Fest coming up, so stick around.